Обстоятельства требуют от нас решительных и незамедлительных действий.
Who in the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare new so-called countries on territory that belong to his neighbors?
We've said very clearly that if Russia continues to escalate, so will we.
Vladimir Putin's goal is very simple. He wants Ukraine to be politically under his control, and he wants Ukraine not to be able to make its own independent foreign policy decisions. That means not being able to join alliances that he doesn't want it to, like NATO.
Шановні громадяни України, сьогодні вранці президент Путін оголосив проведення спеціальної військової операції на Донбасі. Росія здійснила удари по нашій військовій інфраструктурі та по нашим прикордонникам, прикордонним загонам. В багатьох містах України було чутно вибухи. Ми вводимо воєнний стан на всій території нашої держави. Хвилину тому я провів розмову з президентом Байденом. Сполучені Штати Америки вже почали гуртувати міжнародну підтримку.
Просто им не нужна такая большая самостоятельная страна, как Россия. Это и есть источник традиционной американской политики на российском направлении.
The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine is one of the most pressing and complex geopolitical issues of our time. Since 2014, the two nations have been locked in a bitter struggle that has claimed thousands of lives and displaced millions of people. But how did this conflict begin? What were the historical, political, and social factors that led to the current war? Well, in this video, we will explore the origins of the conflict from the complex history of Ukraine's relationship with Russia to the political upheavals that sparked the current crisis. It all began with a historic moment, Ukraine's declaration of independence from the Soviet Union. Imagine a country fighting for its freedom and declaring its independence from a powerful empire. That's exactly what Ukraine did when it separated from the Soviet Union. But with the newfound freedom came new challenges, including the question of who to align with on the global stage. And that's where tensions with Russia began to simmer. For many years, Ukraine was a vital part of the Russian Empire, a jewel in its crown that was prized for its fertile lands and strategic location. But in 1991, it became independent after the Soviet Union began to crumble. And with independence came a difficult choice. Should Ukraine align itself with the West, forging new partnerships and alliances that would reshape the political landscape of Europe, or should it continue to work for its former master Russia and risk being pulled back into the orbit of the Kremlin? For Ukrainians, this was a decision of immense importance, one that would shape their country's destiny for generations to come. And as the rest of the world waited in anticipation, Ukraine stood tall and made its decision, determined to set its own course and make its own future. In 1994, a new leader emerged on the scene, Leonid Kuchma, who faced the daunting task of navigating the treacherous waters of international diplomacy and balancing the competing interests of the West and Russia. Under Kuchma's watch, Ukraine saw the introduction of a new democratic constitution and currency, a bold step towards greater openness and transparency. But the road to democracy was rocky, as allegations of electoral fraud and rigged elections threatened to derail the country's progress. In 2004, opposition leader Viktor Yushchenko launched a mass protest against pro-Russian candidate Viktor Yanukovych, sparking a political firestorm that led to a new election and the rise of Yushchenko as president. Clearly, they both have similar names, but were both on different missions. And even as Ukraine celebrated this victory for democracy, tensions with Russia continued to simmer and boil over. The world watched in stunned silence as a nation once again erupted into chaos and unrest. In February 2010, Viktor Yanukovych was declared the winner of Ukraine's presidential election, ushering in a new era of political turmoil and uncertainty. But the worst was yet to come. In November 2013, as crowds took to the streets to protest President Yanukovych's refusal to sign an EU association agreement, tensions boiled over into violence and bloodshed. Security forces clashed with protesters, and the death toll continued to climb. Against this backdrop of chaos and despair, a cry rose up from the streets of Kiev. Ukraine is Europe. The people of this proud and ancient land refuse to be cowed by the forces of oppression and injustice, standing firm in their determination to chart their own course and forge their own destiny. In the end, it was the power of the people that would prevail. President Yanukovych fled to Russia, and a new opposition government took the reins of power, determined to build a future that was free, democratic, and just. But it didn't end there. In March 2014, Russian troops took control of the peninsula, and the Crimean parliament subsequently voted to secede from Ukraine and join Russia. The resulting conflict, which has come to be known as the Donbas region fighting, has claimed the lives of over 14,000 people and forced at least 2 million others to flee their homes. The events leading up to the annexation of Crimea in 2014 were nothing short of dramatic. In 2013, Ukraine's then-President Yanukovych made a controversial decision not to sign a significant agreement with the European Union. This sparked widespread protest and ultimately led to the Euromaidan Revolution, which resulted in Yanukovych's removal from office in 2014. This power vacuum left Putin deeply concerned that a new Ukrainian government might turn against Russia. Crimea in particular held great significance for Putin due to its historical and cultural ties to Russia, which had been passed over to Ukraine in 1954, as well as its strategic location on the Black Sea. In an action that defied international law, Putin ordered Russian troops into Crimea and annexed the region in 2014. Despite the controversy surrounding this move, Putin remained resolute in his decision, showing that Russia was willing to use to maintain its strategic interest in the region. Russia's takeover of Crimea in 2014 marked the start of a military invasion into Ukraine that persisted with aid to separatist organizations in the east of the nation. The Minsk agreements created a buffer zone, but underground battles continued for years despite it. However, early in 2021, fears of an impending invasion were aroused by Russia's significant military buildup close to the Ukrainian border. Partial force mobilization, Russia withdrew, only to continue the buildup later in the year. And by December, there were approximately 100,000 Russian troops stationed close to Ukraine. With President Joe Biden expecting an attack, the world watched in shock as Putin announced the invasion on live television in late February 2022, following immediate airstrikes hitting cities across Ukraine. But did Putin's plan work? Russia's grand plan for invading Ukraine didn't quite work out as intended. Despite their initial attempts to gain complete control of the airspace, the Ukrainian military held its ground and fought back harder than anticipated. Putin had to adjust his strategy and shift his focus to smaller, more targeted areas. This led to the second phase of the war, mainly fought in southeastern Ukraine, where Russian forces encountered formidable Ukrainian resistance. The conflict continued to rage on as both sides fought fiercely for control, resulting in one of the most significant geopolitical crises in recent history. The Russian military may have thought their strategy of slow and prolonged defenses would guarantee victory, but it turned out to be a fatal mistake. Putin is under pressure, and he needs to show results and justify the brutality inflicted on Ukrainian citizens, but the increasing global pressure and the people's love for liberty are making it hard for him to achieve his goals. The stakes are high, and the consequences of this conflict could have far-reaching effects on the global political landscape. Ukraine has become the ultimate battleground for one of the most significant geopolitical rivalries in the world, the US versus Russia. In this high-stakes game, President Biden's administration is actively supporting Ukraine with an incredible $75 billion worth of military aid, making it one of the largest aid packages ever given to a foreign country. The goal? To help Ukraine achieve a crucial victory in the fight to reclaim its territory and protect its sovereignty. With so much on the line, the situation in Ukraine is nothing short of fascinating, and the tension between the US and Russia adds an extra layer of intrigue to an already complex situation. It's a battle of wills, and every move counts, making it one of the most critical conflicts in recent history. Russian President Vladimir Putin has never shied away from a challenge, and the conflict in Ukraine is no exception. In fact, Putin has gone so far as to compare the situation to the Second World War, showing just how seriously he takes this conflict. For Putin, allowing Ukraine to slip from Russia's grasp is not an option, and he has made it clear that he is willing to fight a war of attrition to prevent it. With the tensions high and the stakes even higher, the world is watching with bated breath to see what Putin's next move will be. Will he escalate the conflict even further, or will he back down in the face of international pressure? We'll have to wait and see. At first glance, Putin's approval ratings may seem like a glowing testament to his leadership. After all, with 75% of Russians backing him, it's easy to assume that he has the unwavering support of his people. However, a leaked report from the Kremlin tells a different story. According to the report, only 25% of Russians actually support Putin's stance on the war, leaving the rest in a state of uncertainty. This revelation not only casts doubt on Putin's leadership, but also raises questions about the true feelings of the Russian people towards their government. Behind the glossy veneer of state-sponsored media and carefully curated news lies a dark truth about the Russian government's approach to maintaining support. According to insiders, the government has to constantly feed its propaganda machine and censor news in order to keep the public on side. In particular, they paint NATO's involvement in the region as a blatant Western conspiracy to destroy Russia, a story that appeals to the public's personal anxieties and fears. And what has NATO done to counter Russia? Since Russia's unlawful and illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014, NATO has been assisting Ukraine's armed forces and defense agencies in reforming. As part of this assistance, tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers received training, financial support, and equipment. The Ukrainian military has also sharpened its skills by participating in NATO training and operations. And in order to improve sectors like cyber defense, logistics, and hybrid warfare, NATO launched the Comprehensive Assistance Package, CAP, in 2016. The CAP consists of different capacity-building programs and trust funds, and recently, during the Madrid summit in June 2022, allied leaders agreed to enhance the CAP even further. NATO member countries are stepping up to support Ukraine by sending over an impressive arsenal of weapons and military equipment, from anti-tank and air defense systems to drones and tanks. No expense is being spared to ensure Ukraine's safety. These weapons and equipment aren't just run-of-the-mill either. We're talking about some heavy-duty gear, like howitzers, that packs a serious punch. It's worth noting that the value of the military equipment provided by NATO allies to Ukraine so far has soared into the billions of euros, highlighting just how much support is being given to the Ukrainian people. NATO and its allies have been supporting Ukraine to a degree never before seen since Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022. It's a game of strategic moves, and NATO is about to make its final play. Checkmate. With tensions running high and Russia's aggressive actions causing concern, NATO has been working tirelessly to bolster its defenses and prepare for any eventuality. Ukraine, backed by increasing military support from NATO, not only withstood Russia's attacks but also launched a successful counteroffensive, causing major headaches for Putin. The tides had turned, and Russia was left scrambling to respond to Ukraine's unexpected resilience and determination. NATO is not backing down in the face of Russian aggression, and they are preparing to make a move to checkmate Russia. Do you think they will succeed? Don't hesitate to drop your comments below. Thanks for watching.